Hey everybody, I'm Todd and this is Sweet Tea Guitars. Thank you so much for stopping by the channel and welcome to episode 9 of the Ultimate Telecaster build. Alright you guys, when we left off in the last video, I had sprayed 2 coats of Spray Max 2K Glamour Clear on this body. I've already started sanding on the back, but only to figure out which grits of sandpaper I needed to use. Well, most of you guys know I use Super Acrylics sanding film here in the shop. I like using this for the finish parts or any little delicate detail stuff that needs to be perfect, which is basically every part of the guitar. I try to reserve the Super Acrylics for the detail work. And the biggest advantage that I can tell you it gives you is the fact that it allows you to dry sand clear coat and get it flat, ready for the next round of coats or for the buffing wheel. In our case, I had a little orange peel and I still had a little grain showing through on the front, so it is going to require another round of clear. Let's jump right back into it, you guys. I've taken a few days off, just letting this dry and everything. I've got 1000 grit on my hard interface pad, Velcroed to this sanding block right here. And we're just going to start sanding this clear flat. You want to be oh so careful up around these edges. You want to keep your body and your sanding block clean. I've got this light over here shining across the body so I can see my surface and make sure I'm getting rid of any of that shine. Another thing I love about the Super Acrylics is you don't have to continuously dry off your body to find the shiny spots. It's just easier this way, and in my opinion, better. And I would not tell you guys that if I did not think so. I'm going to switch over. I've got 800 grit on this soft interface pad. Same sanding block, but I've got a soft pad on there. And we've got 800 grit, and what that does is allows me a little bit more leeway around these edges. I'm telling you guys, one swipe with too much pressure and you're through the finish. I may not get rid of all the little shiny spots, but I've got a little trick that I do right at the end before we call it done on this side. If you leave shiny spots with no sand scratch in them, the clear won't bond in those locations, and over time it will delaminate, so you don't want to take that chance. I've got this soft hand pad here, and I just use it for any of these little areas that the sanding block's too big to get down in, or areas I want to have that feel. We'll make sure we hit all these sides and the corners and all our contours, all the flat spots, all the edges. You don't want to leave shiny spots on your edges, but you also do not want to bear down hard because you will go through the finish. I'm going to take this gray ultra fine Scotch-Brite pad right here, and I'm going to go over the entire back of this guitar. This is a little more forgiving and not quite as worrisome when it comes to sanding through the finish, but this also makes certain that we get down in those little crevices and gets rid of all that shine. Okay, now we're going to work on the sides, and I'll use the round block for most of this. Just watch your strokes as you're going across it with the sanding pad. And if you've got orange peel, the dust will fill in the low spots, and you can kind of watch it and you'll learn to spot when it's gone, and you don't want to go any further than that. I don't like the guitar to feel like it's got a plastic coating on it, so I like to keep the finish as thin as I possibly can, even though we are going for extended durability that you get with 2K urethane. We want it as thin as possible. Okay, now I'm going to take my Scotch-Brite pad, do the same thing we did on the back. I just want to give this a nice rub down. Lacquer, nitrocellulose lacquer, is a different story altogether because it will actually melt itself to the clear that's already there. 2K urethane clear will not do that. It actually sits on top and it will not bond to a slick, glossy surface. We're going to do the same thing to the front that we did to the back. I'm going to take a hard sanding block with 1000 grit sandpaper on it, and we're going to take this in sections. We'll work up here on this upper bow area first. We're going to continue to work on this thing until we get the front up to the level that the sides and the back are at. All right, I think that's about as far as we want to go with our hard block. So I'm going to take this soft block now and just very lightly go over this. There's some things that are acceptable for saying, okay, I can let that go. Good enough almost never is good enough. I want to do all this final work that we're doing right now with the grain. And that is going to do it right there, you guys. We'll pick this thing up and check it out before we turn it over and start wiping it down. There we go, you guys. Nice flat satin finish right there. We could buff this up right now and probably have a absolutely fine finish, but we're not going to do it. I know I've got enough clear coat on here right now that it would handle a buff, but I don't think it would last very long because I know it's thin. I've done quite a bit of sanding on here to get this stuff leveled out, and in my opinion, this is the method to use for getting a super flat high gloss finish. That's just how I do it. Cheers, my friends. What we need to do now is wipe this thing down with some isopropyl alcohol. I've got some 90% right here in the spray bottle. So I just want to take a nice heavy duty paper towel. These are just white shop cloths basically. You don't want to bear down real hard. I'm going to take a tack rag, tack off this surface. And I hate that I can't film this, you guys, but I can't take a chance on getting my camera full of 2K urethane clear. I just can't do it. Once I put my fan in the wall here, it won't be nearly the problem that it is now. I've got the heater cranked up again. I've got my 2K clear nice and warm in this can. We're going to pop this little medallion that comes on the top right here, and how this thing works. There's a membrane inside this can and a valve on the bottom. You put this little cap down there and just bang it on your table, and as soon as you can freely push that valve in and out, you've busted that membrane inside the can. Now you got to shake it for 2 minutes, no less. You need the full 2 minutes. When we come back down tomorrow, I'll show you guys the results of this. We'll do some work on the neck. I need to let this thing hang after I clear it for a couple of days. Then we'll level sand it, and the next time we get it up to this point, we'll take it to the buffer and get this thing buffed up to a nice high gloss. Last night, I went ahead and started to level sand the back of this guitar, and I've pretty much got us there on the back. I've still got the sides to do, and we still got the front. If you sand through the clear, you may not notice it right away, especially if you're over a dark color like this and everything's starting to get dulled out now. But you want to be so careful around the edges, you guys, because you'll sand through the clear coat, and once you start to polish this, it will show up in a bad way. And at that point, you could think it's too late. It's not really. You can always scuff it back up and shoot another couple of coats of clear on it. The problem you run into is when you sand through the finish If you go a little bit further than that, you're going to sand through the paint. It takes almost as much time to fix something like that as it would to sand all the finish off and do it again. And you guys have seen me do that many times here on the channel. If I'm not happy with the finish, I'll sand it all off and start all over again. The end result has to be the important thing. But as it stands right now, I'm really happy with this thing, you guys. I hope you've enjoyed the series so far. I've had a blast building this guitar. It's been a learning experience once again, which is why I do this. Looks pretty good. We can actually mark out our control plate after the fact once we get the pick guard actually mounted on there. But for now, I just want to mark these pick guard holes. We don't want to go overboard marking these things. I just want a divot where I think the screw's going to go. We won't drill the holes until afterwards. You don't want to go too far, but I want to keep double checking myself, making sure I'm happy with the placement, making sure everything's going to work out like it's supposed to. And if we need to make any little fine adjustments to it after the fact, we can do that. But I want to know going in that everything looks like it's going to fit pretty well, and it does. That pearl's going to really start to shine once we buff this thing, you guys. But as it stands right now, we're just wanting to make sure that everything's nice and clean. That rosewood is lovely. And you guys can maybe see if I can catch this right. That pearl color. And here's what I'm using. Ferecla G360 super fast compound with the white lid. I'm using a Manzurna. This is a medium cut, or actually what they call a soft cut pad. This is the second stage. So what I want to do is just mist this body. I'm using CMX. This is Mother's CMX ceramic surface prep. It's basically just a cleaner. I've got everything covered up except for myself, which I'm going to end up being I'll be coated in compound. We want to start slow. Not too much pressure. Get your feel for it. Again, being careful around the edges. I just use this mist right here to give me a little extra assurance that I don't burn the finish. You want to keep the surface lubricated. The faster the buffing pad's moving, the faster I try to move the buffer itself. Oh yeah. So you can see on that end right there, we're already getting up to a really nice high shine. Loving it. I love this part. All right, you guys, let's take one more look at this thing before we move to the front and the sides. There we go. Really stunning. I love that color. It's a perfect complement to this top. I'm going to switch from this medium cut or soft cut Manzurna pad. We're going to go to a 3M finish pad. We're going to switch over to the black lid Ferecla 360 super fast finish compound. Let's make sure this is well shaken. And we're going to do the same exact thing we just got through doing with the compound with this finish. This thing's going to turn into glass at this point. Now, even though I've buffed and polished this guitar already, this thing still needs to hang for a couple more days before it gets the neck glued into it, because this clear coat is still a little soft, and if we start mucking around with it now, there's a chance we'll mar up this finish. But as it stands right now, we're ready to hang this thing up and let it dry for a while. All right, you guys, I think we're going to wrap the video up right here. I'm back on the neck. I'm really not happy with the way the fretboards turned out. The finish is great on it, you guys, but I've got a little bit of super glue staining on a few frets. So what I'm going to do is go back down through here, take a razor blade and scrape between each individual fret all the way down my fretboard. I'll hit this with some steel wool. We'll then reapply the finish to this thing. I'll put a couple of coats on it. I will level crown and polish these frets. We'll get it glued in, and we'll start the assembly process. But that's going to have to wait till next weekend. Here is what I am referring to as the ultimate telly. I hope you guys like it. I think it's beautiful. It turned out so gorgeous. I want to get this video released so you guys can at least see the finish that I've got on this telly body. I'll be back next weekend. As most of you guys know, I'm trying to release a video every week just to show you my progress. I've got other stuff going on in the background though, you guys. It didn't take me all week to get the telly to that state. I've got two other builds going on. I've got the Les Paul build and I've got the Kronos Omega build going on in the background. So we should be able to finish this thing up next weekend, and we'll get a sound demo shot for that thing coming up here shortly, and we'll get rolling on these other two builds. You guys, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can stay up to date as I release the rest of the videos for the Ultimate Telly series, as well as everything else I got planned, including the Kronos Omega and the Les Paul Dilemma series that Gio and I are doing together. Don't forget to head over to Gio's channel. Make sure you give him a like and a subscribe. Gio's a great person and an absolutely fantastic builder. So you guys make sure you go hit Gio up over on his channel, Tornella Guitars, right here on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video. And as always, peace and love.